Welcome to our special call June 15, 2022 meeting of the City of Tuscaloosa Planning and Zoning Commission. This meeting allows for alternative participation in order to accommodate all citizens. Any written comments sent to staff were forwarded to the commission directly. At this time, introduce our staff. Ashley Kreitz, Executive Director. Zach Pons, Acting Director of Planning. Will Smith, Associate Director of Planning. Jimbo Woodson, Deputy City Attorney. There are 9 members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, all whom were appointed by the mayor for staggered terms with the exception of the City Council representative who is appointed by the City Council. I ask commission members to introduce themselves and state their occupation, beginning with Ms. Prince.
Dina Prince, and I'm an attorney.
Eddie Pugh, retired Tuscaloosa firefighter.
Tim Harrison, General Contractor.
Vince Dooley, UA Construction Administration.
Bill Wright, business owner. Hurry up, Ann. Come on. Got to introduce yourself.
We played fruit.
I'll let Ann
Turn
announce
over
herself.
This meeting.
Ann Hornsby, attorney.
All right, thank you, Ann. There are sign-up sheets outside for public comment. If you did not sign up, you still will be given an opportunity to speak. Those wishing to comment on the proposed code updates have notified the staff in advance of the meeting and will be provided the opportunity for remarks during the public comment portion of the agenda. Those participating virtually or written comment have notified staff and will be introduced prior to providing comment or having their comments read into the record. The commission will take up the items in the order of the agenda. The commission will receive a presentation from staff regarding proposed zoning text changes for the articles identified for discussion. The commission will vote to recommend or not recommend these amendments. Note that the Planning and Zoning Commission is a recommending body for zoning text and zoning map changes. The City Council is the final authority. After the staff presentation, the floor will be open for public comment. Individuals wishing to express support or opposition will be given 2 to 3 minutes to speak. Only the Planning and Zoning Commission can grant a specific time extension to an individual. We will begin with those parties in person tonight, followed by those participating virtually. When it's your turn for comments, staff will introduce you to the commission to provide your remarks. Those who have provided written comments will have those read into the record by the staff. Public comment will be received, the floor closed to public comment, and the commission will open discussion among themselves, reserving the opportunity to vote to accept or reject any proposed changes for final consideration at the review meetings that will take place in 2023. These proceedings are video recorded and broadcast live. All in-person comments should be made at the podium into the microphone. Comments made by phone or virtually are video recorded through the conferencing application. Please first state your name and address for the record. Jurisdiction. Regarding zoning text amendments, section 115276 of the Code of Alabama states, the legislative body of such municipality shall provide for the manner in which such regulations and restrictions and the boundaries of such districts shall be determined, established, and enforced from the time to time amended, supplemented, or changed, and may adopt such ordinance as may be necessary to carry into effect and make effective the provisions of the article. The Planning and Zoning Commission serves as a recommending body to the legislative body. While the zoning text amendments will be considered in pieces, they will not be enforced until the full zoning text is adopted and the zoning map changes implemented. In layman's terms, if there is a vote at any point to recommend changes, they will not be enforced on any property until the City Council adopts the zoning text and zoning map changes formally through many public hearings. Conflicts of interest. Do any members of the commission have any conflicts of interest or possible conflicts for any topics on the agenda for discussion this evening? If so, please state for the record. Great. Having heard none, we will begin.
All right, Commission. I'm bringing my water with me this time. Don't get nervous. We have this evening, of course, we want to start with our meeting expectations. For our steering committee members, of course, please note your role in the process if you were making a public comment. For our Planning and Zoning Commission members, of course, you've had chances to review the draft code. Please refrain from arguing with public commenters. Listen, ask questions if you need clarification. Be respectful, and then, of course, desire an expedited proceeding. For everyone involved in these processes, we will begin at 5 p.m. and end at 7. Something is not finished, we'll roll that into our next meeting. We will utilize a 3-minute timer for public comments, and the Planning Commission members will be the only ones that can extend a time given to somebody. And finally, the staff is going to manage that flow of the meeting for efficiency's sake. So remember that our code rewrite is going to maintain what works today and update what doesn't. You're going to hear a lot of that this evening. We've gotten, with our university, our mixed residential university and our multifamily residential university, we're in a place that works. And if it's working today, why break it? We want to make the code more user-friendly, implementing the comprehensive plan's recommendations, consolidating some existing zoning districts, and then adding some new ones, and then updating our development standards and permitted uses to more modern things. So of course, we are doing this in 2 phases. First, we'll have the zoning text focusing on purpose, intensity, and dimensional standards. We're still in this process today. We'll look at development standards in the future meetings, and then our use standards as well, and we will wrap this all up with a pretty bow with our zoning map. So again, our zoning code articles, this is that general outline of what our zoning ordinance will look like in the future, and we are in that section 4, our zoning districts. So each district includes purpose, dimensional, and intensity standards, and then references to anything else that is relevant. So as we get into this evening, we have what are university districts. And I know I've been beating a drum that says try not to think about this as existing zoning districts that we have today. It's very hard to do that in this area, I'll be honest. You've got university commercial, your mixed residential university, and your multifamily residential university districts. So as we take a look at that first one, the university commercial, it's to provide lands adjacent to major colleges and universities within the city that are walkable and include a variety of retail, restaurant, entertainment, lodging, office, and residential uses. This is very similar to what we know today as BNU, but it has the opportunity to be applied more broadly around Stillman College and Shelton State. So it's not just oriented to the University of Alabama area anymore. It's intended for commercial uses in those areas. Development standards are new and designed to implement what you saw as campus services on the future land use character map from Framework. We have been holding stakeholder meetings ahead of these formal meetings with y'all. And in our stakeholder engagement meetings, they showed a real need for us to revisit this area. Our current BNU standards are lacking in a lot of ways. There's no material standards. There's no real interface between facade activation. How does a building look and feel on the street? The parking standards are sparse at best. And so the stakeholder meetings, we came out of those saying we need to come back. We need to do a little bit more work in these before we even really present them to the Planning and Zoning Commission in this way. You've had a chance to take a look at them. And of note, and I know I see a few folks behind us that were involved in those stakeholder meetings, but there's concerns about the maximum density that is outlined, that it may not be enough, and then others say it may be too much. What kind of material standards are we looking at, though, in this area? Right now, there are none for this zoning district, and so we would like to probably go back to the drawing board, work with Clarion, and get a little bit more fleshed out here. So this will be coming back to you at a future meeting, if that is agreeable. All right, let's take a look at the mixed residential university. So this is a new district, but we do note it is basically a 1-for-1 with what you know today as our R4U district. And so what you see is it's primarily single-family detached, duplex, and triplex residential development around the UA campus, intended to support medium-density residential, incorporate limited context-sensitive, neighborhood-oriented commercial, employment, community, and educational activities, very similar to what you see today in the permitted uses for R4U.
Context. read back up.
Context-based, yes, ma'am. Context
Limited
sensitive.
context sensitive.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Just we want to make sure that
For the people at home.
For the people at home, yes, of course. What is developed makes sense with what's around it. That we're not slamming something that is too big next to something that is too small for now. And especially in this R4U area, you've got a lot of R4U property that abuts historic property, and also that abuts historic buffer property and other single-family homes. So making sure that the context-sensitive approach is taken as we redevelop.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so taking a look at the intensity and dimensional standards. Today, you have a limit of 200 beds per acre, not to exceed 200 beds in any one development. And while it does seem a little silly to see it across in a table, and especially under single-family detached, that limit exists today. It just shows up differently in a table. The lot area minimums, the lot widths, none of that has changed. Your front setbacks of 15 feet remain the same. Side setbacks remain the same. Rear setbacks remain the same. And that special 37-foot building height maximum remains because we're elevating structures 2 feet off the ground, so we wanted to make sure they could continue to be 35 feet tall. So that is what we're looking at in terms of our intensity and dimensional standards. Want to point out with neighborhood compatibility, that remains something within this code. In some of our stakeholder meetings, there was an idea of this 35-foot. So in neighborhood compatibility, what you're looking at is this home here. The property line, you're taking the setback, and then your building is 35 feet tall. You draw a 45-degree angle, so you don't have an overhang. You don't have that shadow. There's been in a couple of the stakeholder meetings, there's concern that that 35-foot number may be too tall, too much. We're going to ask Clarion to do a couple more tests of it for us. We're getting some software in and of ourselves that we can run some tests with it just to see what this would look like. This is especially for the areas around the historic buffer, the historic district, and existing single-family homes to make sure that the limited contextual-based standards apply. But anyway, one addition to this is that where the building roof is stepped back to comply, that rooftop living space is prohibited. You're not going to have a party patio, for lack of a better term, in that area, continuing to keep the noise away from the single-family homes. The site development standards for new development and redevelopment within the district are very familiar. They look at parking, sidewalks, landscaping, screening of parking, waste containers, mechanical equipment, our fences and walls, exterior lighting, the mechanical equipment and utilities, as well as accessory structures. There are not major changes identified to any of those. In terms of parking, you do see that district parking requirements for the number of spaces. There are a couple of unique areas in this location adjacent to historic districts that do today already have an ability to count a 1-for-1 with an on-street parking space counting towards an off-street requirement. We're also specifically calling out that mechanical lifts are prohibited, and we're adjusting the bicycle parking within this code in that way that y'all took a look at previously as a planning commission when we looked at small lot redevelopment, making sure that someone who wants to build 30 one-bedroom units is not penalized in having to put in 30 bicycle racks when perhaps 5 would suffice, or 6. Sidewalks are required for development as they are today. Any questions there? I know we went through it, but as a commission, you're very familiar with the current standards under R4U. You've taken a look at a lot of things, and we've reviewed and re-reviewed that code section many times, and you've had a chance to take a look at it ahead of time as well.
Can you go back to the one drawing that had the 45-degree?
Yes.
Just kind of curious about that. Is that something that I can't envision one existing currently in the city? Is that out there currently? Something built like
We
this?
have consistently applied this. So this concept actually came from the Tuscaloosa forward zoning. And we have consistently applied it since it was implemented in 2012. I can't think of any one example because we, as staff, we just point out to people and say, hey, listen, you've got to comply with this. And everyone has done a really great job of it. I know the historic buffer property.
I think what's a little bit confusing about this drawing is that the flat roof adjacent to the 45-degree angle.
Sure.
Because what I imagine more likely to be
A lot
is
of
a
pit, yeah, a lot
peaked
of pitched
roof or a
roofs.
different kind of.
Okay.
So it may just be that looks like, that's a very strange looking building.
We could ask them to amend
Yeah, and
that
make it just a
roof
look,
pitch as
give us
well
a
to
couple
help
of,
you envision something different. That's fair.
And I know I'm probably reading this totally wrong, but it sounds like the two sentences in that paragraph conflict with each other. You're saying that no building shall extend, but then where it stepped back to comply, it's so now you're letting it have the 45-degree angle in the second sentence. How am I reading? I mean, I know I'm reading it wrong, but explain it to me, please.
Yes, ma'am. I'll explain
perhaps
it to you
it should be edited.
because it is. I mean, and I think that the comply in there is what's throwing you off potentially. So it says no building shall extend into that 45-degree angle plane. So if they were to draw, listen, and I've never been able to draw 3 dimensions. I am not a good planner, so just hang with me. But they can't extend. Wow, just wow.
Very nice.
I'm glad you think so. So if you pulled that building into that pink and you squared it up,
Yeah,
that would be where that building cannot.
you can't do that, right.
And so where it says where the building is stepped back in order to comply,
You just can't have living
you
space.
can't have rooftop living space, no party patio in that location.
Okay.
Maximum height in there is 60 feet.
The maximum height in this location is 37,
37.
actually.
So why are we worried about a setback on
So the
35
neighborhood
foot?
compatibility, as you'll see when we get into the multifamily residential university, it refers back to these standards that are in this section as well. So where it does become a little concerning potentially is you could have a single-family home next to something that could go up to 60 feet in height.
And you have a 35-foot limit there, although you couldn't have a 35-foot building and then have
So,
that roof.
so,
I get it.
So,
I know.
that's-
We'll make some,
Yeah.
we'll have
Is
them
that-
make
That's
some
confusing.
amendments.
so basically, you can't have a roof or structure there, right? That's including a roof too, within that 45? So you're basically restricting them to a flat roof, basically.
In this location, yes,
Yeah.
it would be a flat roof
exactly.
building that you could build.
Gotcha.
And to your point, I mean, this was actually really good feedback because of the fact that it was situated within this portion of the code where the maximum height is only 37 feet. And we're talking about, okay, 35 and then a 45-degree angle. We need to get them to clean it up a little bit
Okay.
more so it's less confusing. I think we've just looked at it for so long.
Right.
It's a second language.
I would submit to you this, there needs to be a separate drawing other than this for a 37-foot maximum
We
height
agree.
versus a
Correct.
60-foot.
Yeah,
maximum
that's
height.
fair.
Yeah.
There's a lot of confusion.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yep, that's
That would-
really
that would
fair.
help.
Okay. Anything else in this section? All right, let's get into what we know today is RMF2U. So everything we just went over, we're now looking at a new district with standards that are, again, basically a one-for-one with the current RMF2U district. This is for anything with close proximity to UA, primarily residential neighborhoods that include multifamily development, intended to support a high-density residential environment, incorporate limited context-sensitive neighborhood-oriented commercial employment, community, and educational activities. So in terms of context-sensitive as well, we're looking at uses that make sense in the area. Taking a look at the intensity and dimensional standards for this area, of course, we still have that density maximum of 200 beds per acre, not exceeding 200 bedrooms in any one development. We still don't have lot area minimums, lot width minimums. Your front setback in this area is reduced, but it already is today, to 10 feet. Your single-family detached homes for your side and rear setbacks, you'll see those outlined. And then building height maximums stay the same as well. You've got single-family dwellings, single dwellings, duplexes, et cetera, at 37 feet. The triplexes, quadplexes that are 4 stories not to exceed 60, and your multifamily dwellings in RMF2, and these are apartment buildings only. Framework in the process, framework recommended that those be 75 feet. The housing subcommittee also said that multifamily and apartment buildings could be 75 feet. But also, because of the density regulations, it's not as cumbersome. You end up with something more aligned with Westgate or similar, as opposed to the others.
You call maximum building height, you put note 4 and 5.
Yes.
How are you going to distinguish between multifamily dwelling and a 4-story quadplex?
It's the way that it comes in. I mean, a quadplex has the 4
Right.
units in it. Anything that has more than or 5 or more units becomes a multifamily dwelling in the way that it's defined. Taking a look, there is one amendment in our stakeholder meetings that was caught, and we do need to call your attention to and suggest that it goes back in. In today's code, apartment and multifamily dwellings to the west of Gene Stallings are limited in density to no more than 110 beds per net site acre. And it says to the west of Gene Stallings. I've gotten in a couple loud conversations with folks about how to make Gene Stallings work. So what we propose is actually just tracking that line that you see there, Campus Drive to University, down Stallings to Bryant, across Bryant down to 12th Avenue, and making that your 110 beds per acre as it exists today, just formalizing that line. But that does need to be inserted back into the code because it is not there today. But nothing else changes from what you know today in your university residential districts. Any questions? All right, let me talk to you quickly about our institutional districts. And you'll say, Ashley Kreitz, we have 1 today. Why do I need 3 in the future? And I promise you it's going to make everyone's lives a little bit easier. So we have proposed 3 institutional districts. 1 is institutional university, institutional public, and then institutional semi-public. So taking a look at what we have today, of course, we just have the institutional district. And we're trying to fit UA, the schools. We had the mental health land in a lot of respects. And how do we make it all work? I recall DCH once when they had to change out their logo. and the sign on the side of the building, they ended up having to go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for DCH, because technically all of that applied to them still. So we need to make a way that we can utilize a little bit of common sense in some ways for our public, semi-public, and our other institutional providers. We reached out to the county, to UA, had some really great conversations, reached out to Stillman, Shelton State, so. But our institutional university district is for UA, just to be very blunt. It is to allow them to continue to grow and develop along with their master campus plan. And so as you'll see, and as you saw, there are no intensity and dimensional standards. What they do is to be consistent with the university's master campus plan. Institutional public is for governmental uses on larger sites like the city, county, state, and federal government offices, court buildings. The airport is a great example. We want to make sure that we're providing some standards to protect surrounding residential uses from some possible incompatible development. But taking a look again, right now, just with the intensity and dimensional standards, and we'll get into the uses, of course, in future meetings, but right now, just intensity and dimensional standards, there are no lot widths or heights applicable to these areas. And then semi-public, you're looking at colleges and universities other than UA, so clearly that's Shelton and Stillman. You've got public and private secondary schools. Most of our schools are zoned R1, and so that becomes really challenging for them when they have quick temporary needs, I think especially to temporary classrooms. And every single time they need a modular classroom for a year or two because they've got this influx of students, but they can see in the horizon that it's going to ebb off, they have to go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment and request a variant, or not a variance, a special exception to utilize that modular classroom building. This is also for hospitals, hospital complexes, some cultural facilities to support appropriate growth and development. So within this area, the only big thing to talk about there is just some new stuff for hospital and medical complexes where development should be compatible with existing development, anticipated traffic generation compatible with internal and external street capacities, allowing for pedestrian circulation within it, and be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So in the future, I know that was a quick touch on 3 districts, and it's like, what are we going to do with these? As we get into permitted uses, it's all going to start to mesh together. Again, we're just wading in, and we'll start meshing all of this stuff together as we go. So anyway, do y'all have any questions for me?
No, ma'am. Do we have any, is anybody online or signed up to
No,
speak?
sir, nobody online,
Only in the
nobody
public?
signed up.
Okay. All right, at this time, anyone, I don't have a sign-up sheet, so anyone care to speak for or against what you've heard this evening, please come forward, make some comments. Okay. We'll need your name and address for the record. So whenever staff ready? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, sir?
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Kendall Mollenauer, and I live just down the road at 2700 Capitol Park. Oh,
Come a little closer to the microphone. I'm not sure they can pick you up.
oh, is it picking it up now?
Yes.
Kendall Mollenauer. I live at 2700 University Boulevard, which is just down the street from here. I'm liking the whole idea of just putting all the students by the university. I think it just makes sense that they go over there. And the other thing I like about it is the whole bicycle parking. I like to see more of that bike parking minimums. It encourages more bike usage and alternatives to just car dependency and driving everywhere, especially for the students as they since they're so close to the campus, they don't have to drive and try to find a spot in the commuter parking lots. So I think that's a good idea for that. Other than that, I think that's a good good plan for the handling the students. Hopefully, we can get some more faculty residences over there too, so they can enjoy the same benefits as well. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Mr. Chairman, we got that one on tape. We got complimented. Is that what I heard?
think-
We
I think I heard
want to
that.
see that. We don't get that very often. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Anyone else? All the developers in the back, thumbs up.
Good. Wow.
Anyone else care to?
We'd take a compliment if y'all want to come up. I mean, either one of y'all, it doesn't matter. That's right.
Anyone else care to make a comment? Okay, having heard none, we will close for public comment. And any member of the commission care to make a comment about what they've heard? I'm as someone who's been involved in this arena with a couple other members here since 2013. It's nice to see we're finally adopting what we said in 2013, 9 years later, but that's another
And
conversation.
commendations to the staff who worked so hard to put all this together.
Absolutely. So that's my few words. Anyone else?
Ms. Kreitz, how far are we into this endeavor, percentage-wise?
Oh, Mr. Harrison.
30%?
Sure. I'll let you have 30%. This is our third special called meeting.
And we're going to December.
You've been scheduled out as you've adopted through May of '23.
A lot longer than December.
We'll hit our stride. Don't worry, we'll hit a
Okay,
stride.
all right.
All right. Well, if we can keep the meetings this cordial and quick, we can get through it pretty easily.
There's a lot of good work that goes up to these meetings, and a lot of folks that we sit down and talk with, and make sure, once we get to this point, that we know some of the sticking points that need to be readdressed. So
Well, that's the biggest thing that's making this easy for us, is that you vetted all the issues with the stakeholders, and they come with their heads nodding. That's great. So again, another tip of the hat to staff, all the staff. So thank you. Okay. Anyone else?
let me go over quickly with y'all where we're going next. So of course, today we did our institutional districts. In July, on the 20th, we're going to start talking about the lake. And this is all new zoning that we'll be discussing in July. In August, we'll start taking a look at our downtown districts, our riverfront district as well. And by the time we hit September, we'll be talking about definitions, nonconformities, and some multifamily districts as well as single-family districts that allow an assortment of housing types. Some missing middle housing, one might say. But things to look forward to. And of course, anyone, as you're looking around on framework.tuscaloosa.com, you're able to review the draft articles ahead of the meeting, submit some comments, take a look at the meeting schedule, reach out to staff. We're always available. But other than that, I will turn it over to you.
We need to ask the commission to adopt or pass this along. Are you okay with us just
No,
adjourning?
because we do. You're
Yeah.
good with just adjourning. We're
Okay.
no vote.
I just didn't know if they weren't on the record.
Yeah.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and this meeting is adjourned.
All righty then.
Wow.